Good Saturday morning, everybody, from Universal Studios, Florida. Or is it Universal Orlando Resort, or Universal Studios Orlando, or any one of a dozen names that this place is called? One way or the other, we are going to do some laps around the park here today and check out all the goodness that's happening Halloween Horror Nights related. Because after about 9 months of seemingly endless bitching, Universal Studios finally announcing everything for Halloween Horror Nights this week. And so, as in prior years, Halloween Horror Nights Orlando will feature 10 haunted houses and 5 scare zones and 1 show. And so, starting right at the entryway for the park in Minion Boulevard, that's what I'm calling this now, Minion Boulevard. Got Minion Mayhem and the Villain Con Minion Blast scare zone here. Dr. Oddfellow's collection of horror. Dr. Oddfellow kind of assuming the role as icon this year. So Dr. Oddfellow having a storied history with Jack the Clown in prior years. You can read up on that. We put a link down below to the HHN Wiki so you can get familiarized with the backstory here. But Dr. Oddfellow essentially injected into all of the scare zones here this year, as well as his own house. But as we begin our journey into Hollywood, we have some lighting trusses up here. As we walk into the Dark Zodiac scare zone, not a lot set up here yet. Do have some designs up here around the lighting truss. Dr. Oddfellow has entered into another dimension here to harness the power of the Zodiac. Look at this, Velma's looking for clues. Not part of Halloween Horror Nights. Good morning. Uh-oh.
2 hands.
Yes.
2 hands.
Safety first. Yeah. We'll stop in the Five and Dime and check out the merchandise for the Exorcist Believer, one of the 10 houses that were announced yesterday. You can drink your whiskey with one of these glasses. It's pretty nice looking.
Yeah, it is.
Another white shirt, which is fantastic for the summer heat. All of the shirts this year should be white. And the tag is on the back, which is also fantastic.
Ooh.
The Stranger Things shirt is so soft.
It's so soft.
So soft. I like the design and everything else, but without seeing the movie, I can't imagine buying the shirt. More lighting towers set up. Not a whole lot else here, in this zone at least. This is that time of year where things are gonna just appear every single day, and we're not gonna come back here every single day. Save the chef. Save him now. Coming up into the park area. Do you know where you are? The jungle of doom. You're gonna die. Also, Dr. Oddfellow's been here before too, in the 1920s. I like that they have this little stage thing here, kind of out of the way. This thing's been up for less than a week and people have already started to destroy it. Oh, here's an interesting little thing. What could it be besides the smell of weed over here? Let's right across from this other lighting truss. And Puss in Boots is out over here. You should really be careful. Oh my God, we've got speakers. Lots of speakers. You know what that means?
No.
This scare zone's gonna have noise. Check out those vines. And oh my God, still, what a disaster. I can't imagine having to walk back here for any haunted houses, but you get a good view now of what's happening over in Kid Zone. They've gone vertical. So they did announce, since the last time that we were here, officially that this will be DreamWorks Land. So totally themed area for kids based off of DreamWorks stuff. Looky there. It's made out of metal. Since we're back here, we might as well come for the mystery. It smells so good.
I'm Steven Spielberg.
The green planet.
It's Dr. Oddfellow. Sneak peek of Dr. Oddfellow's circus.
Goodbye, Tyler, Heidi, Gino, Kevin, Barry, Patrick, Kenneth, die, Antonio.
Over by Animal Actors, they have removed all of the tables and seating area back here to, I guess, ease up on congestion for anybody traversing the park back here. This was a really good hiding spot, usually during the event, because it was always dark. You could eat your food in peace. Not anymore.
They're going to keep one row of seats or something.
Yes, it's
Down the walkway.
for Wonder Woman. You know. More lighting back here. Now, they didn't announce a scare zone for the Simpsons area back here, but wildly speculated this area would be used for a roaming horde. Like normal, there used to be clowns and things like that back here, and this year, rumor has it that it'll be Megan from the movie Megan roaming horde. So no Megan house like everybody was speculating, but Megan horde supposedly back here. Duffman says, I don't know what Duffman says because I don't remember how many days it is until Halloween Horror Night starts, but it's like 34. Look at this back here by the Coca-Cola building. You have the gateway for Halloween Horror Nights to get into the houses, or a portal, whatever you want to call it. Not quite sure yet how many houses will be accessed through these entryways here at this point, because we have the construction over by ET. I'm not sure if you'll enter a house through that way. I'm assuming so. Otherwise, like last year, there was one house that you entered to the extended queue of Men in Black, and it took forever to get over towards that Bugs house. It felt like it was like a good half-mile walk to get to that house last year. And back at the former Fear Factor stage, we have the return of Nightmare Fuel, although a new version of that show. To be honest, we didn't even see that show last year. Not one time. All I could say is bring back Bill and Ted. And so new this year, during Halloween Horror Nights, we have a little stage set up here in Diagon Alley because we're gonna have a little Death Eater action. Death Eaters have been in Islands of Adventure for the last couple years during Halloween Horror Nights. But this year, finally, during Halloween Horror Nights, they're gonna be in Studio Side. So this should suck in some of the crowds that are looking for haunted houses and things like that. You can come in here, get your beverage on over that way, and enjoy a little Death Eater. Whoa, dude, that's awesome. Heading into San Francisco, we have a lot more lighting up over here in this scare zone, always the most congested scare zone of them all. This year is going to be Shipyard 32. Dr. Oddfellow's oddities have escaped over in this area, and look over here. Perhaps theme bar. I wouldn't worry about these construction walls sticking around. But lots of lighting up over here. This looks like it's probably the beginning parts of something hanging for a stage. I'll be honest, it's really hard to imagine it being Halloween Horror Nights when it's so hot out today. It is scorching. And before I forget, I'll say this. When you come to Horror Nights, be sure to bring stuff in case it rains, like either a poncho or an umbrella. And if you're staying inside for multiple days, be sure to bring multiple shoes because you're gonna get soaked. It is gonna rain at some point because it's so hot. My God, save the pizza chef. It's a me, don't attack me. And then heading into the New York area, this will be where Vamp 69 Summer Love will be. Summer of Blood, I apologize. You have string lights happening up above and some themed booths over here. No, there's no peeking. We're not that type of vlogger. Another themed booth. And we've got the big stage, similar to Vamp 85. And we've got lighting and what looks like might be a projector up here too. But here you go. This is modeled after Woodstock, of course. I'm assuming that we'll see characters from that time period or concert. Similar like we saw with Vamp 85 and the Michael Jackson Vampire and Prince, etc. Perhaps Jimi Henderson will make an appearance. This should be a lot of fun. These Vamp scare zones are never really that scary, but they are hella fun to sit around and watch. And by the way, can we see a return of the tribute store for Halloween Horror Nights over here? At least according to a little Easter egg that's in the Jurassic Park tribute store now. kind of indicates that the tribute store for Halloween Horror Nights will be back in New York. Also of note, on that little Easter egg that's in the Jurassic Park tribute store, it notes that it's a comic book store that's in New York. And Horror Nights announced yesterday that the tribute store will be themed after a comic book store. That's going to do it for us for in-park content. We'll tie this out when we get back home. We'll talk a little bit more about the houses and some more Halloween Horror Nights goodness. Alright, so we're back home. Let's talk a little bit more about Halloween Horror Nights and get into some of the haunted houses and the rest of the announcements that were made this week. Of course, Halloween Horror Nights running from September 1st through November 4th. And it kind of feels like this year they're almost running almost every single day, but check the calendar on the Orlando Halloween Horror Nights websites for all of the dates, ticket prices, and tickets that are available. There's certain multi-night packages that are available, or single-night tickets as well, and express options, or RIP options, which are basically guided tours through each of the houses. You can either do a private RIP tour or a group RIP tour. Private meaning that you're paying for your specific group to go through, which is uber expensive, kind of the most expensive way to visit Halloween Horror Nights, or a group, meaning that you're just paying to be assimilated into whatever group of folks that you'd be paired up with for the night. Folks generally ask us which tickets we do each year, and we've done a variety of different ticketing options, but we've kind of stuck with Frequent Fear Plus with Express, when Frequent Fear Plus basically means every night except for Saturday, with the addition of Friday, that's the plus in the Frequent Fear. Otherwise, Frequent Fear is just every day except for Friday and Saturday. But Frequent Fear Plus, every day except Saturday, with Express option, and Express to us is a must. It's the ability to be able to get to the park and kind of bypass the general lines. And with properties like Chucky and Stranger Things and The Last of Us this year, I expect some of those lines to be in the multi-hour range to be able to get into each of those haunted houses. And for us, it's always comes down to the fact of how much is it worth for you to be able to bypass those lines. And when you buy the multi-night ticket with Express, it works out to be certainly a lot cheaper than buying a single night with Express multiple times throughout the event. And while we walked through the park, we talked about each of the scare zones and the areas that they'll be in. Again, this Dr. Oddfellow's Collection of Horror, the Dark Zodiac, Jungle of Doom, the Expedition Horror, and Vamp 69, Summer of Blood, and Shipyard 32, Horrors Unhinged. Each of those scare zones tying into this Dr. Oddfellow character that has lore throughout Halloween Horror Nights history, along with Jack the Clown. And I do urge you to look at the backstory for Dr. Oddfellow. I'm not sure if we'll end up seeing any of the other characters that may be involved with Halloween Horror Nights lore as a result of Dr. Oddfellow having such a prominent feature throughout the event this year. Let's get into the haunted houses. And while we're talking about Dr. Oddfellow, might as well just parlay that into talking about Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins, which will be an original house this year at Halloween Horror Nights. You won't be able to resist going inside Dr. Oddfellow's menacing menagerie of twisted oddities, which I expect to be kind of like a carnival sideshowy type of house. I normally would say I expect this to be kind of the biggest or best of the original ground up houses for Halloween Horror Nights, because Dr. Oddfellow has such a prominent stronghold on the event this year. But there's such a good wealth of original houses that Halloween Horror Nights is offering this year that I'm not sure that this will end up being the best. To me, I'm certainly looking forward to this probably the most out of any of the original houses. And when we talk about original houses, there's 5 original houses this year and 5 IP houses. And what we mean by IP houses is basically intellectual property. So they're based off of something that already exists out in the commercial world, whether it be Chucky or the Universal Monsters and things like that. The original house is basically just coming from the brainchild of Universal Studios' creative team for Halloween Horror Nights. Universal announced Dueling Dragons Choose Thy Fate as one of their original houses this year, which really seems like a curveball when you think horror-wise. Dueling Dragons, for those that have been going to Universal Studios for years, was a favorite among the coaster community because it was a coaster that had 2 kind of cars that were going at the same time and kind of competing against each other. Since replaced to make room for Hogsmeade over on the Islands of Adventure side. but Dueling Dragons being turned into a haunted house, and kind of alluding to the fact that you're choosing your own way or your own path or team, and then choosing the victor for the house itself. Intriguing, to say the least. The Yeti is back this year. This year it is Yeti Campground kills, and this is, I think, the third time that we're seeing Yetis pop up at the event. We had a B-movie house years back that kind of spun up the whole concept of Yetis. Then we had a full-on Yeti house, which was glorious a couple of years ago, because it was the one house that was super, super cold when you're waiting in line in the ridiculous heat in Orlando. But the campground kills and the Yetis themselves, the Yeti characters a couple of years ago that were in the house were fantastic. Lots of fun scares and lots of good jump scares with just over-the-top ridiculous costumes. So that's really something to look forward to for sure. Next up in the original houses is The Darkest Deal, which for a while in the Halloween Horror Nights rumor circle, it was kind of labeled as The Devil Went Down to Georgia. It's kind of the tale of blues musician Pine Straw Spruce that has to face the music after selling his soul. I think this has the potential, at least for musicians. And you think back to the Ralph Macchio, Steve Vai guitar duel battle from years back. This could be a real underdog hit or surprise hit for the year. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do. Overall, for all of these houses this year, I think this is probably the biggest batch of houses that I've ever been really most intrigued about seeing on an overall level. There's nothing here that seems like filler to me. The last original house is Blood Moon Dark Offerings. I keep trying to say that without a New York accent popping through. This is a colonial era village. Moon worshippers witness a blood moon at their fall festival. And they take it as a sign to hunt down any non-followers, including you. If there was any weak link in the 10 houses that were announced, I think this is probably on the list for me as the lowest or least intriguing, I'll say. And circling back to the IP houses this year, we already had a few announced for the season. Stranger Things is making its return to Halloween Horror Nights. Stranger Things, it's a love-hate thing with Stranger Things, the same way that it was with The Walking Dead, and also American Horror Story at the event, because these big IPs bring in a ton of people, and I expect these houses to have multiple hour waits. Stranger Things is going to be based on season 4, which was just absolutely phenomenal. So I'm expecting to see Eddie and the Demo Bats and so much Stranger Things goodness. I think there's so much stuff that you could do with this season, and then potentially even call back to some of the prior years as well. And for as much as Stranger Things might not be horror to some over the last, or at least the first 3 seasons, I think the introduction of Vecna in season 4 really kind of put it firmly on the map of like a horror type of show, and just imagining the evils that Vecna can deliver. Also previously announced, The Last of Us is coming. The Last of Us is kind of a dream come true, I think, for a lot of folks that live and die by PlayStation games. The Last of Us is based off of the PlayStation game. It's not based off of the Cinemax show, which is essentially just a reshooting of the video game in any event, in my opinion. But it should be phenomenal to be able to walk through that universe in a haunted house. The first house that was announced this year was actually announced last year at the end of the event, and that is Chucky. I think the concept for Chucky has shifted a little bit over the last year. I think Chucky originally was supposed to be based off of the TV show a little bit more. Now this year, this is Chucky Ultimate Kill Count, where Chucky is basically invading his own haunted house. He wants to ensure that there's all kinds of bloody hijinks, like literally all of the hijinks. All of them. For those unaware, Blumhouse has a new Exorcist film coming out this year, and therefore Halloween Horror Nights is basing their Exorcist house this year around that Blumhouse movie, and this is The Exorcist Believer. The prior Exorcist house that was at Halloween Horror Nights a few years back, it was okay, in my opinion. It wasn't the greatest house. It was fun kind of walking through what the movie was. Hopefully this time around it doesn't have the smell of like the pea soup or whatever effect that they were using for the Linda Blair kind of puke scene, which was just horrible after the summer heat got to that smell, especially towards the end of the run. But I'm expecting the movie to be super scary. It's a Blumhouse film, and the house to be equally scary as well. I think the tough thing about going through the Blumhouse Exorcist house will be that I don't believe that the movie releases until October 13th, and the event starts so much earlier than that. It's not the first time that we've had houses at Halloween Horror Nights that open prior to the movie opening as well. I think the most recent one prior to this might have been like the Dracula house a few years back. It's just awkward kind of going through and you see all these different sets and you're not really understanding how that factors into the movie. So it would have been nice to see the movie prior to being able to go through the house. And the last IP for the year is going back to Universal's Monsters again. And this episode of the Universal Monsters houses takes place in France and will feature Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Phantom of the Opera, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, some characters that we haven't seen in the Universal Monsters houses at Halloween Horror Nights to date. And it really sounds kind of exciting to be able to get some of those different monsters other than maybe Frankenstein or Bride of Frankenstein. If you are staying on site at any of the Universal Hotel properties, especially Cabana Bay, you get a little bit extra Halloween Horror Nights sprinkled into your stay. At Cabana Bay, they'll have this photo op experience for Chucky existing this year, just like in prior years where they did it for Stranger Things, as well as some of the Universal Monsters. The Cabana Bay bar will be transformed into a Halloween Horror Nights experience as well with some themed drinks. And the other hotels will also have themed drinks and some food items as well throughout each of the Universal properties. As part of Halloween Horror Nights, they will have food options again available this year. And in addition to the food that you can get during the event at the park, Universal also doing, in my opinion, a ridiculous type of preview of food options that you can buy into for about $150, $160. Be able to go to a nightly event that's going to run from August 10th and just before the Halloween Horror Nights event, where you can get sample sizes, so it's kind of like a food festival, of the items that'll be served at Halloween Horror Nights, as well as a Blinky cup and a Freestyle cup that's apparently not even activated, perhaps, during the tasting event. It seems kind of ridiculous to spend $160 to be #first to try food items before the Halloween Horror Nights event starts. It really kind of seems like it's serving perhaps like the vlogger or blogger community that wants to try to get things out first before each other. There's always this big race to try to get the best or first content out. The food at Halloween Horror Nights is never anything really to write home about. There are some things that are interesting at times, but it's generally overpriced theme park food. That's what we're typically getting. But kudos to Universal for charging money for people to try to be first, and in turn giving them more free advertising so that the general people that are watching videos like you guys will perhaps want to partake in some of those food items. But expect as of the night of August 10th to have probably your YouTube feeds full of people with shock faces, like looking at the food items that they potentially can get. I do expect the tribute store to open up right around employee preview time, which is generally like the Wednesday prior to the event opening up. But overall, Halloween Horror Nights, it's back again. And I really can't believe it's been a year since Halloween Horror Nights even ended. It just kind of feels like we're whipping around on this endless cycle of Halloween type stuff. I'm looking forward to getting back out there, enjoying some good scares, enjoying seeing friends and family come back in, and enjoying meeting a bunch of you guys as we walk along the streets as well. So let me know in the comments below what you're looking forward to the most out of the event this year, if there's a favorite house that you're looking forward to or a favorite zone. And let's start counting down the days before we get to single digits. We're almost there. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for coming along. Thank you very much for all of your likes, comments, and subscriptions. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Have a great day. See you guys. subscribe to the cheap seats, or he's gonna kill me.